You're listening to the Work Cultured Podcast, where good companies keep good company.
So but before we get into it,
sure.
we're just shooting the shit.
Yeah.
So as I was looking, obviously you know Jason, but I was like, I don't know who this guy Jedd is. So I see you went to college at ULM.
Mm-hmm. That's
Did
correct.
you grow up in Louisiana?
No, I grew up in Reno, Nevada.
Interesting. How'd you end up at ULM?
I got a scholarship at Southern Idaho Junior College.
Okay.
I pitched there for 2 years.
I'm from Shreveport, by the way. That's why. Yeah.
Bossier City, baby.
Yeah.
So I played junior college for 2 years. I had a really strong freshman year, pitched in the World Series.
Nice.
Got recruited by a bunch of different schools. Was very strong academically. ULM wasn't on the radar at that time. I was supposed to go to Cal.
Okay.
And they had a coaching change, and Smoke Laval had just left LSU and winning 4 national championships. And he went to Louisiana Monroe, and he recruited my best friend, the third baseman. And so once he did that, my best friend was like, you got to talk to this coach. And I said, nope, I've already committed to Cal. I'm going that direction. I'm signing on Friday. And the coach called me and said, I'll give you a full ride, everything, which just doesn't happen in baseball.
Yeah.
At Cal, I was getting 50%.
And probably getting a start. And,
Yeah. So and this guy that I was playing with was really good. And I said, okay, yeah, I'll do it.
Nice.
So that's how it happened.
And then went from there to California.
Yeah.
To
So
kind of start your career.
Yeah, so I really wasn't going to stay in baseball. I graduated with a bunch of different degrees. My future wasn't the game, I didn't think.
Yeah.
I loved baseball. I loved coaching. But my wife was a year younger than me, and she graduated first in her class, and she had another semester. So I didn't get drafted. I was undrafted. And when I got undrafted, I said, yeah, I'll stay with you here in Louisiana. And then I just took a whole bunch of classes. So I ended up getting 5 different degrees.
That's crazy.
And I wasn't thinking about baseball.
I don't think you've told me that.
No. So, and I had just all these credits. And so then when we left, she graduated first in her class. We went back to Reno. I had a bunch of job interviews lined up. And one of my best friend's dads knew the coach at University of Nevada, Reno. And there's only so many jobs, right? There's only one Division I school.
Yeah.
And he reached out and said, yeah, come on over. You want to try and you can be our volunteer coach this year. So I coached literally, that happened in 3 days. Took that job.
What year is this?
1997.
Shit. Okay.
Yeah. I was really young.
Can't use that now.
I figured this part wouldn't be used anyway.
There's some of it can be, but yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah. So 1997, I coached
Business
at
people
Nevada.
don't say shit.
Yeah.
No, they
don't.
Especially
We had a
not in the
really good
fitness
team.
industry.
Yeah.
That team was amazing. There was 4 major leaguers on that team. And we went
From
all the way.
Nevada.
From Nevada.
You produced 4 major leaguers.
Yeah,
Wow.
It was just a wild season. And at the end of that year, I started getting opportunities. I was 21. And that's when I got a job offer to go to a brand new junior college town of 5,000 people, 85 full-time students. There's 130 junior colleges in California. And of course, Jason knows this about me. People were like, you don't take that. That's a disaster. You'll never get out of there. You won't win. And of course, that only made me say, well, I definitely have to take this job now and prove everybody wrong.
Yeah.
So we started a brand new program in 97. I got to build the field with 5 other guys, which was a really cool experience. And then once we built the facility, when I played in Louisiana from Smoke Laval, he gave me the handbook, the Bible that he had built over 40 years with different coaches.
Wow.
And so I literally took that system verbatim and implemented it at this tiny little community college. First year we were okay. Second year we made a run. Third year we won the conference, and we won the conference every year after that. And we finished in the Final 4 in the state of California my last 4 years.
Wow.
And I was a young kid. So
Yeah.
it was a blessing. It was a blessing to have it. And people would ask me, why are you doing this? Well, the system says that. What system? And it was Smoke Laval system. So I was blessed to go to ULM. I didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah.
But when I was at ULM, I'm not sure if you remember those 2 years I was there, we went from last place in the conference to first place, ended up playing LSU, knocking them out of their own super regional in 95, and lost to Cal State Fullerton, who won the World Series that year. So
I do remember the Fullerton year. Yeah.
yeah, it was wild because, ULM wasn't on the map. Like no one, especially in baseball.
And in Louisiana.
Right.
I mean, I grew up in Louisiana. There's one school.
Exactly.
All those other schools are like, wait, what?
It was interesting.
Wow.
And before I left, Smoke asked me for some help. I took Ben Sheets out on his recruiting visit, and then Ben Sheets became who he was. And I think he was 27-1 in the years. Yeah, I pitched there. So it was a cool little time for me. And I just got lucky. It was the universe giving me something back. And then I felt like I had to pay it forward.
Yeah.
And it took me back to my home roots.
Wow. Now, how did you, going from there, how did you get back to, or maybe not even back, how'd you get to Austin?
So in 2013, I was coaching. I was a workaholic. I had 2 little boys. They were maybe 3 and 1.5. And I was working nonstop. I missed date night for an entire year. I knew there was a problem. And what I realize now, and I didn't realize then, was in a Division I school, particularly in a small Catholic conference like the West Coast Conference, you can only take your team so far because you're restricted by money. You're restricted on how much time you can spend with them. Sure. Where in junior college, before I went to D1, I'd outwork people. I'd out-hustle them. I could out-teach. But in Division I, it just didn't matter. Like, you're going after the top 1%, and I'm competing with Stanford and Cal in the Bay Area. So the game changed. It shifted. And I found myself working more and more to try and keep up with some of these bigger schools.
Yeah.
And, I missed date night, like I said, for an entire year. I was supposed to go to Yosemite for 5 years in a row and had a miss.
Oh, no.
Where you have to book it a year out. And so I could feel that strain with my wife, and I definitely would feel the pangs of not being around my kids and them struggling to know who I was. And then I got sick. I didn't know I was sick. I lost 50 pounds over a 9-month period.
Wow.
You should know that you're sick. I just refused to acknowledge it.
Sure.
Ended up having multiple kidney surgeries at the end of 2013. And that's when I kind of had my epiphany. I told Jason the story. My 4-year-old at the time, climbed up on my stomach and said...
At the hospital, right?
No, it was at home.
Oh, at home. Okay.
I had just had surgery. I was bleeding out on my side.
Wow.
He didn't know I was home. And our nanny was doing something, and he came back into my room, and he climbed up on the bed, and he's like, Dad, I didn't know you were home. I said, yeah, Dad's home. And he said, well, when you travel, I love you this much. But when you're home, I love you infinity.
Wow.
And it was like such a dagger. And I didn't know at the time, I didn't know how sick I was. I didn't know if I was going to make it. So that was my whoa, what am I doing?
Wow.
And that shifted everything for me. I had just signed a 6-year contract. I just built an $8 million stadium. My team that I was working savagely to get to a point to succeed, I left. We had 4 major leaguers on that team that are currently playing in the major leagues.
Still today.
Today, yeah.
I love it.
And I had to give the keys of that to the next guy, which was fine. I was so sick, I didn't feel great. So I was prepared to let all that go.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad I did. Like I said, it took a real act of poor health for me to realize that the direction that I was going wasn't necessarily what was best for me or my family. And the kids were fine. The kids that I left there, they needed me, but they didn't need me as badly as my own family did.
Sure, yeah.
So that's what led me back to Austin. So
okay.
My wife worked for a hedge fund, a very successful hedge fund, Renaissance Technologies in San Francisco. And she was just about done with the finance world. She was like, I've been doing this for 10 years. I train 2 hours a day. I don't get to see the kids enough.
Yeah.
And she hates the cold. And San Francisco is colder than you. I don't know if you've ever been to San Francisco in the summer. Have you been to San Francisco in the summer?
I've been actually in the winter, and it was cold.
Summer.
Yeah, it was.
I think the summer is colder than the winter. It is freezing
Really?
there.
Just off the bay, I guess.
It is. And what's interesting is that in the East Bay, 18 miles away is where I coached. It'd be 100 degrees. And I'd drive in, or I'd take the train in to see her, and it was like 51.
Holy cow.
Wow.
It would
That's a
drop
big
50
difference, yeah.
degrees. And so she froze. And so She hated the cold.
Get me out of this, Jedd. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And she said, I don't want to go back to Reno Tahoe because it's so cold in the winters. I want to move somewhere where it's warm year round. I can be outside. And I said, well, you pick, because you've always followed me with coaching. And that's when she said, let's go to Austin.
Did y'all have a connection here already?
We didn't. I played in a super regional here.
Okay.
And she came to that super regional. We were dating in college, high school as well. So she knew the area, and she said, I like Austin. I like that it's inclusive. I love the job opportunities. I want to move somewhere where it feels like the Brady Bunch, where kids can ride their bikes to school and it's safe. And we went all around Austin. We flew down a couple different times. We looked in Steiner Ranch, looked in bee caves, and the small houses, small land. And I told her, I said, I want to move to Texas and live on a little piece of land like we do in California.
Yeah.
And then we found Pflugerville. And I would never in a million years think I'd live in a town called Pflugerville. But they had these huge oversized lots. It was very affordable. And now it's built out, right? You know, but back then it was farmland, and I just loved it. So my kids just rode their bikes to school for the last 6 years. And
I love it.
Yeah.
What school?
They went to elementary school at Roe Lane Elementary, and now they go to Kelly Lane Middle School.
Okay.
They're getting older now.
That one's like right by the golf course there, by Black Hawk.
That's where I live. I literally live right next to the golf course.
Oh, I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you a golfer?
I am.
Ooh. You didn't tell me that.
Yeah, no.
Nice.
I did tell him though that you did. So we went to the batting cages and 15 minutes of instruction, and I was 50% better.
Yeah.
Just with 15 minutes with Jedd.
He's a good learner.
And it reminded
Very athletic.
Yeah.
It reminded me of going to Topgolf with you, where I knew nothing about golf, and 15 minutes in, I'm like, oh my God, it's going where I want it to go.
Yep.
How is this possible? So I've already promised Jedd that we're going to go golfing, and then 15 minutes with you, and he'll have a better swing.
Absolutely. And my favorite people to teach are baseball players and hockey players.
There's something there.
Yeah.
I think the first time I played, I shot an 85, and I didn't know what I was doing.
Nice.
Right? It's just it's a very easy transition.
Yeah.
Especially from hitting a fungo, because the fungo feels like
it's a type of bat. It's like skinnier for
longer, skinnier bat
okay.
for coaches, so
Okay.
you can generate more bat speed.
Okay. Nice.
So it feels like a golf club. So when I went out there, I was like, oh, this is like a golf club.
Yeah.
And I can hit it on in 2.
Yeah.
I just can't get it in the hole in 2.
Sure.
That's my problem.
Yeah.
Occasionally I can, but not all the time.
No, I love it.
By the way, there's a lot of that where we're definitely going to use.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it doesn't matter that we're going to go back. We're going to introduce you in a little bit, and we'll put that at the front, right? So,
okay. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's
the
all
magic of editing.
Sounds good.
No, I love it.
If you know the name of the movie you'd like to see, press 1.
Why don't you just tell me the name of the movie you'd like to see?
Kramer?
Well, hey, welcome to the Work Cultured Podcast. We have Jedd Soto with us, who is the owner of a couple of fitness studios in Austin, Texas. He's previously a college baseball coach with a lot of success, players in the MLB right now, a couple even contenders for, I think, Cy Young Awards.
Yeah, that's correct.
Incredible. He was an incredible coach. He's an incredible boss of the team that he's got going on here in these studios.
Thank you.
And by the way, we'll let you do some plugs later. You can talk about why REGYMEN is different. I love it. So yeah, we're going to dive right in.
Sounds good.
Let's just go. Actually, you know what? We have to start here. We ask we ask all of our guests the same question to kind of get going.
All right.
Okay?
Sounds good.
What is a mistake that you've made in leadership that you'll never forget?
Well, for me, when I first got started, I had the system that we talked about earlier.
In baseball.
And I didn't.
Earlier's now.
Yeah. Well, let's say this
Earlier's later.
While we were warming up.
While we were warming up, 25 years ago, when I was given the system of baseball, I was very militant, and I didn't allow for a lot of back and forth. It was very much, this is what the rules are, and you execute those rules, and if you don't like it, go away. And, the world doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And so, especially when you got 18 to 22-year-old kids.
Competitive,
Very
driven, headstrong. Yeah.
And I found myself losing games or losing players that I shouldn't. And it was because the wake that I was creating of work for my assistant coaches was immense. I didn't realize I was creating that. And it was just because I was unapproachable. I was the big guy. Stay away from me. Let me drive this machine. But I was untouchable. And in that, I learned a bunch. Most importantly, that was probably my biggest mistake early, was I just needed to be more personable and meet with every player. So after the first year and a half, I realized this wake of work that I was creating for my assistant coaches. And they said, let the kids see who you are. They're going to love you. Don't hide from that. Don't be too cool. Don't be too tough. And just let that guard down and let them come in. And so I started to do every semester I met with every player. And in junior college, there's no limit. So I had a couple teams that were 100 players.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was wild.
Wow.
It literally took me a month to get through it. But there was so much value in it, and I gained so much back from them. I realized, okay, I can do this better, and my assistant coaches can do these things better. But it was that feedback that I allowed them that safe space to share that totally shifted us to where it built trust. Ultimately, what it did is it drove that trust, which is so difficult to find anywhere these days, but particularly in baseball, because kids go from team to team.
Yeah.
It's not the old days where you had one coach and you call that coach and say, what's this kid like? Those kids play for 7 or 8 different people, and they don't trust those guys that they play for. So it just really expedited that learning curve and that trust that was shared. And that's when we got really good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That sound, the word that's kind of entered into our consciousness over the last 5-10 years is vulnerability.
Yeah.
Is that what you'd say you kind of garnered for yourself and implemented?
Oh, there's no question. Yeah, it is vulnerability. And it set me up to go coach in Division I.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, the system of Division I baseball. Every player that I had the opportunity to evaluate me twice a year. And I didn't like that. I was like, these are kids. I'm telling them, hey, stop, doing X, Y, and Z so we can win baseball games. And then they come back and say, I didn't like the way Jedd talked to me. But it was great for me. It peeled off all those layers. It made me very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And had I not had that previously, it would have been more scathing. And it wasn't. It was like, okay, you're correct. I do need to do these things better. So, yeah, vulnerability.
Well, and probably the residual impact on your family and even now your employees and do y'all call clients or customers or members?
We call them our fit family.
Fit family.
Fit
See,
fam.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen the hashtag FitFam.
Yeah.
When it comes to regimen. Yeah.
That's right. It is. It's a family. But yes, absolutely. With my kids, I always tell my kids, they always said, why didn't you have us earlier? And I said, I wasn't ready to have you earlier. I wasn't even planning on having kids. I was such a workaholic, and, my coaching was a mission of mine. I didn't have children until I was 35. So waiting that long, I told them, I said, it's a blessing for you guys, because I learned patience and I learned vulnerability and I learned communication and all of those integral things to make you a better dad, husband, father, and even a business partner.
Yeah.
And that's shaped you in a major way as you entered into this new venture, REGYMEN Fitness. You had no idea you were entering also very soon into the most difficult season of business, especially in that industry that the modern world has ever seen. Yeah. So when did you open the first REGYMEN studio?
So, I worked at Dell. When I moved to Texas, I didn't have a job. I was just taking care of the kids. My wife was in big data, working for Dun & Bradstreet. And I was looking for something. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for. So I took a job with Dell EMC. And I was a relationship manager pretty much. That's what my job was. And I loved it. And it was great. And I was able to build some different leadership platforms. Because when I got there, I realized for Dell, they had built this system that wasn't unified. It didn't feel unified to me. It felt very spread out. And there was a lot of teammates that were leaving the organization, and I didn't like that. Very talented folks. So I decided, I said, well, I'm going to put people out in front of them so they can see it, so they can understand what's available at Dell EMC. So I started a leadership program, and it turned into something really big. It's still used today. And from there, I worked for a gentleman that I didn't agree with him philosophically. And I always feel like I can manage up, manage sideways, manage down. He was not somebody I could
not
manage.
having it.
No, he just wasn't. He was a very unhappy person. It got to the
his
point.
full name was, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
No, but it got to the point where I was just like, this isn't matching, my ideals. And I come to work to help people. Like that's it. I have a servant leadership style. And, he was so very much about him going to the next level that it just didn't match. So I'm at the point of my life, and I've done some different things that I'm not going to tolerate poor leadership. Sure. Just won't. So I put in my notice. I had just been named Employee of the Month, all these different things, all these accolades, and it didn't matter to me. Like I said, I'm older, I'm beyond that, and it's not just about money. So I put in my notice, and 3 days later, again, the universe just reaching out to me. I had made friends with somebody at the local Orange Theory, and he reminded me of our strength coach that I had at St. Mary's College. Brilliant guy. Really very big on periodization and volume training, very unique skill set. And it's difficult to see that over a 12-month period on how to properly train athletes. But we became friends because of it. And we talk every day. He'd coach the group session, and then afterwards we would talk about why. Why is that important? And what kind of modifications are necessary? And how do you do that with low impact? Because everybody's bodies are trashed as they get older because of all their athletics they've played. And he had some really unique ideas, and I loved them. And then he moved and became a national programmer for Orange Theory, was a big part of their background and building their system. And then he got frustrated because he's like, I want to do more. I want to build more. I want to help athletes further than what we're capable of doing in this set system at OTF. And so he branched off, built his own system, which is now REGYMEN Fitness. And so literally I turned in my notice at Dell. 3 days later, he hit me up and said, would you like to help me build this concept in Austin? Absolutely. Tell me more. And he said, well, you remember how we talked about low impact training and where we can get everybody in shape safely? And I said, yeah. And he said, I can do it. And I said, well, proof's in the pudding. Once you get a studio together, bring me down, I'll test it out, and we'll go from there. Immediately, Jason knows this about me, immediately my mind's all the way down the path. If this is right, here's the people that I would want to involve in this project. And that was back in September of 2017. It was a while ago.
Yeah.
And then by April of 2018, they had built their first mock studio in Pensacola. So I went down, I did a training with them. I trained for 5 days, 10 workouts, which is not my norm. Lost 7 pounds, and I absolutely
in 5 days.
In 5 days,
2 days for a week, and you're down 10 pounds. Wow.
And the crazy thing is, I can't lift weights once a day for 5 days without hurting. I didn't hurt, and I thought, well, is this an anomaly? Is it just because I want to fall in love with it? And my wife said, look, if you loved it that much and you believe in it that much, go again in a different city. Wait till they build a second one. If you go and you have the same experience, then we'll sit down and have a real talk about our future. So a couple months later, Baton Rouge built their first one. I went down. I was a part of my second training there. Same results, same experience, same body transformations. And I was 44. And I went, wow, I can train really hard. My body doesn't hurt. And again, there's not much I can do that more my body doesn't hurt. So it was amazing. It's mind blowing. And I feel bad because of COVID that we're not further along, as a company.
But your studio, so you go through all of that, and then you obviously have to get funding.
Yeah.
You have to build your team, which we'll talk about.
Yep.
And then doors open in
November of 2018. We opened
November 2018. Okay.
November 2018. I put my team together. There was just 4 of us to start, looking for leaders of the fitness industry in Austin. Yeah. It's very important in Austin when you're in the fitness world that you start at a very high level. There's such a high expectation. There's so many brilliant, bright people in this area. If you don't hit that mark early, that's going to prevent you from any future growth. So for me, it was very important that I brought some of the fitness leaders in. Aaron Kaiser, a brilliant mind, roommate of Josh Wisman, who actually started REGYMEN. He was a part of that initial team. Tyson Brower, incredible coach. I actually worked with Tyson for 4 years. And what made him so special, not only is he brilliant, but he's very personable and really cares. There's a charisma about him where he looks like kind of a meathead football player. He's so handsome. But when you actually work with him, he's just incredibly charismatic. He truly cared. I watched him time and again work with members, all members, without anybody else knowing or caring. And so we brought him on. And of course, he was engaged at the time to Natalie, now Natalie Brower, and she's just a powerhouse. Jason knows. She's just an incredible powerhouse, hardworking, brilliant, smart leader that we've just been blessed to have. So it was the four of us that started it with my sister, Audrey, who helped us with the funding. Audrey's a retired doctor. Her and her husband are both doctors up in Illinois. And she got behind us. So she financially backed us to get that first one open.
Yeah. And what was the ramp up like that first year and a half?
It was challenging. There was a lot of things that hit us that we couldn't prepare for. In any business, you're counting on people to deliver.
Yep.
And there was a lot of people that didn't deliver. There was a lot that did. We were fortunate to find some folks that did execute. Rob Pickett and Structura, on the construction side of it, were fantastic. And they helped us through. We were the first franchise in the country. So even the blueprints weren't done. We didn't know what tile was going to go in the bathrooms. We didn't know exactly what sound walls needed to be put up. Even the flow of the gym was still being created.
Wow.
We knew the concept was amazing, but actually how the intricacies would work was always a challenge. So we actually built all of that. So yeah, there was a lot of challenges, lots of strategic thinking that had to go into before we opened the doors.
And this is just with your core team and a bunch of contractors, right?
That's
the four folks, plus your sister for financing.
Yep.
At what point did you have to start adding more people to that core?
As we got close, so we made the decision to start pre-sale July 1st. We couldn't even use the space, so we went to Nordstrom's in the Domain. And that's where we were signing people out of.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We'd get our coffee and start signing people up over there. And it was just believers that believed in my team. Had a following. Tyson and Aaron both had a pretty significant following in the fitness community.
Wow. So
these people would come in and say, hey, we know you're going to be involved where we want to be involved. So.
Yeah. And so then fast forward, you opened a second studio in Round Rock.
Yeah.
What date?
Well, so we were planning on opening Round Rock before the pandemic. And I literally was going to sign, and I'm so fortunate that we didn't, but something was just off with the old ownership group. They've since sold to a new one. But it was just off. There was a lot of commitments made that they had backed out on in the last minute. Mm-hmm. And it prevented us from signing on the dotted line. And then the pandemic hit, and then they said, we'll acknowledge all of those. And it was too late.
So you were about to sign the dotted line.
It was a death sentence.
Weeks before.
It was actually days.
Days before that early March 2020 hit.
And these were all guarantees. And they said, we won't, there was no breaks. So had I signed that, it would have, like most fitness, it would have crushed us.
So many gyms, studios, big and small, shut down. Completely gone. Yeah.
That would have been us. And again, it was just, it was trusting your gut.
Sure.
I'm surrounded by brilliant people in our organization. And if I'm unsure, I always trust my gut. And that's something that I've learned from my coaching days. And I'm pretty quick to make an assessment. But I'm also blessed. One of my partners is Davis Gilmer. He's a local attorney, and he's been helping us from the very beginning. And he's actually the kind of the mastermind who put together how to build a region. Very bright guy, graduate from Rice. And he was my right hand. And I said, gosh, this doesn't feel right. And he's like, you trust it. So with his guidance, we collaborated and said no. And then COVID literally happened days after.
That's incredible. The universe taking care of you again, man. Yeah.
Right. Wow. Right.
Yeah. And then
talk about dodging a bullet.
Yes.
And then, there's, I can't remember what they're called, but like some relief funding, you're able to get a little bit of that, but you use that plus investment dollars. Like your investors that were counting on you opening a studio, you went to them and you said, yeah, no, we're not going to open a studio. And also we're not going to lay all these people off.
That's correct. Yeah. That was another Davis and Jedd conversation of, the world's collapsing. And I remember specifically having the conversation of, well, what if it doesn't collapse? What if this is a short-term shutdown? Mm-hmm. What if it truly is 2 weeks? I don't want to start over. And he was 100% on board and said, treating people right is the only way. So let's take this $200,000 that we saved to put into the Round Rock. Let's use that to not lay anyone off and continue business as normal until we can ramp back up. We didn't know how long that was going to last. And it was scary, right? There were some really very difficult conversations within our group of, can we survive? Will we survive? But I was really proud of our team. Everyone dug in. There were still things happening. Like we had just partnered with a company for supplements, and I did T-shirts and swag, and that didn't stop. I still had all of that. And so we reached out to all of our Fit fam and said, obviously this is hard times for everybody, but, if you would honor your commitments to the supplements, we'll find you some at-home workouts so you can stay in shape. And it was amazing, them coming together and helping us survive that time. But as you mentioned, Jason, we burned through the $200,000 fairly quickly. We did get some PPP relief. It wasn't very much, but it was something. And it kept the doors open. And fortunately, we're here in Texas, right? If we weren't in Texas, we would be done. But because we were in Texas and the government, our governor said, hey, we're going to open back up in 2 weeks and here are the rules, that saved us.
Yeah.
So we started back up, and that's when the whole thing shifted for us. So, no one could anticipate what was going to happen.
Yep.
But when that did happen, it forced us to think in a different way. At that time, we had a very small group of investors. It was a very tight knit. And for me, I said, I still want to grow. I still want to expand this amazing platform to the world. Nothing had shifted there. And so he said, well, have you thought about, asking people that have asked you, had interest in investing? No, I had never thought about that. So I went to only friends and family inside our regimen community. And within 10 days, we raised right at $3 million. 10 days.
Wow.
This is right after COVID.
Yeah.
And that made me realize.
These are part of your Fit fam. These are members who have seen the potential destruction and had to freeze their memberships and haven't been able to come into the studio and experience that community.
Yes.
And they still are just here, take my money.
We're going to invest back into this thing.
It was amazing. And what it told me was, we have the right product.
Oh, yeah.
We have the right people. Now it's just a matter of...
I have chills. That's a fantastic...
Right. It is wild.
And when was this?
This was, I want to say it was October of 2019. So we had opened back up. We had got our numbers back up to a decent level. Nothing extraordinary. We were
2020 probably, because March 2020 is when
2020
hit. Yeah. So later that year.
Yeah. So later that year is October of 2020.
Wow.
And I want to say it was, I think I made the ask from our group October 15th. And as I asked folks, they'd say, hey, did you talk to so-and-so? Because I know they want to invest too.
Wow.
And within 10 days, all of the investment opportunity was gone. And I just sat back and I was like, I don't even know if I don't even believe this. Like, that's how much these people believe in our product.
Yeah.
It was very humbling, and I was very thankful and grateful. And then that triggered building the next couple studios.
Yeah. And now I know you have many more planned. I know you're a visionary, and you've got people not even in the state saying, take my money, open here.
Correct.
We won't, spoilers. We don't want to, we're not signing an NDA with our listeners here.
Sure.
But where are we now? You've got 2 studios, and how many employees?
2 studios, 25 employees, and
hundreds of members.
Yeah. We were at near just 1,000 members here recently, in just our 2 studios. And that growth pattern is pushing us to grow again.
Yep.
And forcing my hand to make those decisions, which is a great problem to have.
Sure.
But yeah, 2 studios, both right at break even, if not profitable from month to month, which again is pretty crazy given all these different strains of COVID and the reemergence of it every 2 months. I'm very grateful, very humble. We have an amazing team.
Over 20 employees, which is huge from a core team of 4.
Yes.
And so, you have your OG all-stars, but now you have to scale that. You have to get the most out of those people as you can without working them to the bone.
Yes.
You don't have work from home or hybrid as an option. I mean, you have to literally be in the studio. So tell me about your challenges building a good, strong culture with this team.
Well, I think it's really 2 parts.
Or successes.
Yeah. Really, it's 2 parts. The first part is, and I think everywhere, and I saw this when I was traveling to Nevada, there's a gap in the workforce right now. There's a lot of people that aren't working. So finding the right employee is more difficult, I think, than it's ever been. And it was not any different here in Austin. You have some folks that are really talented, that make a lot of money that we can't employ. And then we have some folks that are maybe not ready to take on the responsibilities of what happens in our fit community. It's very demanding. There's some very big expectations when you take a job with Regimen. The people know it, they expect it. The customer service level has to be very high. So to Jason's point, how do you scale that? And, I'm going to just say it outright. We had an investor, a friend, who really kind of took me down that path. I was looking for something to get us to that next level, a tool, something that could simplify that difficult process rather than just an interview. Interviews are great, resumes are great, but it's not enough. And I saw that, and our attrition at Regimen is nil. Like if somebody leaves Regimen, it's probably because COVID forces us to reduce our workforce. It's not because it's the wrong person. But it was also important we'd find people that were misaligned within the organization. Their skill set was better in a different spot, and how to get them there was a process. So again, we have an investor and a friend that helped me see that path, and we use predictive index, which I think you're both familiar with. But
you don't have to beat around the bush.
Yeah. Predictive index was, and it was you. Let's just say it was Jason.
Oh, am I your friend and investor?
Yes,
you
are. Yes, sir.
Spoiler.
But Jason, when he first came in, very bright, owned his own, big part of a big company. That was the kicker for me. And he said, look, if I'm going to invest in this company, this is something that I really believe in. I think it's really important. So we met a couple times, and literally, again, I'm pretty quick on the draw. We talked a couple times, and I said, this is something that we absolutely need. And we brought it in. Everybody in the upper level organization at first, just them, did the assessment. It was like a magic trick, right? He was the gentleman that came in and talked to us about it, was telling us things about ourselves that only we knew based on the hardwiring and the questions that we answered, and how we can ascertain that from a 5-minute test was mind-boggling.
So you started looking really hard at the hardwiring of people.
Absolutely.
And you guys actually adjusted your model, your in-studio model for like the roles that people were playing. Yeah.
100%. It affected us so greatly that we looked at the whole business model entirely different than we ever had. And what we found ourselves doing is reaching out to headquarters and saying, hey, you might want to take this and you might want to take this, so that we could understand their hardwiring, so that we could connect faster and that we could drive business forward quicker. Because again, we're doing this in the midst of tripping over ourselves with Delta, with all these different strains
Omicron,
of yes.
Yeah.
It was during that weird time where you'd have 2 great months and then 2 awful months. And it was imperative that we moved quickly. And PI allowed us to move quickly, not just within our own organization, but at the headquarters level. So to your point, we literally rebuilt our entire front based off of hardwiring.
Yeah. Another big piece of that for you, and I don't have to ask the probing question because I already know, was the core values and developing that and getting that to permeate the culture. Because when you start with a small team, you don't necessarily do that exercise. You don't.
No.
In your case, you kind of had corporates. Looked like they'd used a online generator to come up with a bunch of words to be values. But you're like, no. I want this to be ours. To come from our hearts.
Absolutely. And that was something that came from the book Traction that we had talked about.
Yeah. EOS.
Unbelievable that, Jason was able to take that information with a group of, our people are hard-headed, right? Every organization has some people that are this is the way it is. I've been doing this for 15 years. You were able to bring a group of hard-headed, driven individuals into a room and, take 120 different suggestions and get that into 5 core values, 5 things that everyone looked at each other and said, this is who we are. This is what we feel is important. And this is what's going to drive our business forward. This is the magic sauce. We were never able to say it or capture it properly until we did that exercise with our core values.
Yeah. What's one of the values that you say, just like you feel it in and day out?
Well, our first one is transform lives. I think that one, of all of them, they all hit me hard.
Yeah.
But the transforming lives, it's interesting. I was thinking about this yesterday. Before you transform other people's lives, you have to transform your own life.
Sure.
And I think once you can transform your own life and you're comfortable in your own skin and you have the confidence level, that's when you can really lead other people. And I've seen so many people in our organization with a very definitive, I'm going to transform lives, start with themselves. So I have folks that I work with. I don't even call them employees. I don't like that term. I prefer teammates. Sure. I have teammates that have grown so much in the last 12 months. And it's not, sky's the limit is too short for them. Like the galaxy, the universe is their limit because they're just growing in leaps and bounds. And the things they do bring so much value to our organization. I can't capture it. I can't pay them enough money. I will one day. I will compensate them for this growth. But I mean, the transform lives for me, that's the most significant one. Because again, I think it starts with that individual. And then once that individual can get into that path, they transform others' lives. And I've seen them really make a difference in our Fit Fam. We're talking about 1,000 members. The nutritional awareness, the macronutrients that we're starting to do now, even the personal training that we've branched into, all of those tangibles create a plethora of opportunities for anyone that comes into our organization.
I mean, fitness in general is very tangible when a core value is transforming lives.
Yeah.
Changing the world one guitar pick at a time. It's not a very strong mission statement, right? I can't really envision that. Sure. But I mean, walking in the way you do these challenges and stuff, people are coming in 6 weeks, their entire world is flipped upside down in a really good way.
It's true. And I did it myself.
So I want to pause for a second, right? So obviously Jason has been to a number of regimen workouts.
Yes.
I will tell you, months ago, he did say that I should come, and I didn't. But now I'm hearing this, and if it's okay to say, I used to do like Camp Gladiator.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I've tried all the other ones. Camp Gladiator, I love them, love the people.
Yeah, they do a good job with their people.
But as I'm hearing you say this, and I certainly don't want to be devil's advocate, but I want to learn more. There's this part of my brain that goes, we're talking about a gym and transforming lives. And I get it, the physical, but can you go a little deeper in that?
Yeah.
Because the way you talked about it, I'm like, what is he talking about? This is amazing.
Why is it different?
Yeah, exactly. So I want to know a little bit more, the deeper part of that, of transforming lives.
I think when we talk about transforming lives, everybody has their own, everyone comes in at a certain level, and it's our job to meet you where you're at. So some people come in and they're elite athletes and they are very close to what they want to achieve. I'm trying to lose my last 5 pounds of body fat. There's other folks that come in with eating disorders. There's some folks that come in with emotional hardships that prevent them from getting where they need to go. That's just a couple very small examples, but it's that deeper connection with our group. And it was very difficult when you're just running a group fitness business. There's not a lot of time for personal connection. You might love that coach.
Yep.
And you get them for 45, 55 minutes, and then that's a magical part of your day, and you move on.
Yep.
What we've learned and what we've done post-apocalypse, post-COVID, is, I told our team, and we have some mentors from other studios that helped us, but I saw the way that they were delivering even more value. The connectivity was even deeper. And I went to those gyms and I experienced it myself. And I saw folks come in who really had significant issues with understanding macronutrients and why that was so important in their transformation. And once they got over that and they had that awareness with their food and they combined that with their exercise, body composition changes, right? Confidence changes. Eating disorders went away, blood pressure medications, like really significant things in these people's lives shifted that I got to watch. And I went, wow, I want to deliver that too. What do I have to do in our gyms to provide that level of expertise? And we had all the pieces. We just didn't know how to capture that at the time. So that's when we were talking about realigning our entire ship. And that's when I started to see the magic. And before I ever did it with anyone else, I personally did it. I don't ever want to push something out until I've actually experienced it. And I was right around 222 in pounds, and I never got under 222. And I was like, well, it's because I'm older. My body just won't allow me to lose that last 8 pounds or whatever it was. That's in the garbage. Like I didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah.
But my team put together a macronutrient plan and said, just do this for 6 weeks. This is what's going to happen after your first 6 weeks, but it's the second 6 weeks that you're going to really see the magic happen. First 6 weeks, I changed the way, it wasn't horrible because I ate healthy anyway, but it was just, I'm eating too many fats. I eat a lot of nuts. I eat a lot of avocado. Mm-hmm. I got to have more protein. And I started making those adjustments. It wasn't horrible. I still got to go out and eat.
This isn't some crash diet.
No.
Yeah, like 30 days of torture. This is basic changes that are fundamental, giving you that awareness that you never had before.
And I've done Whole30, which is torture. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've done it probably 9 times.
Not a sponsor.
Yeah. And at 222, at 222, that was right after I got done with the Whole30.
Wow.
So I realized, I was like, there's a better way. And I don't have to torture myself, and I can have a little bit of sugar, and I can have some fats, just not a whole can of almonds. And so I started the system. I got down to 206. I was 10.9% body fat. I had abs for the first time, maybe in my entire life.
Well, they've always been there. You just couldn't see them.
Yeah, they were just covered. But it was just so empowering to me personally, being in fitness and being a coach and seeing that there's even more to give. I was 100% sold. And I said, all right, who endorses and supports this mission? And we had folks in our organization who are certified in nutrition who said, yeah, I'd love to take this on. I'd love to grow this. I'd love to help. And now I see the support groups, and this is kind of where I see the biggest change. Early on, people would jump into our challenges, and it would be me doing all the talking. Oh, hey, make sure you're not getting any more than 40 grams of protein per sitting because your body can only use 40 grams. Oh, hey, by the way, it's Jedd. Put protein in your coffee in the morning. It's a great way to start the day. And I was the one that was driving it. And after about a month, there is so much feedback that's shared. And you have some OGs who have had these huge transformations. They're the ones that are driving it. It's our fit community, and they're driving all of these details. There's so much to learn.
And where are these conversations being held at?
So we have a couple different platforms. One, we have a Facebook Challenger group, which is fantastic. And that talks about, we do Form Friday. So people that are having a hard time, because we take like I said, we take anyone, and we're going to meet you where you come in at. And so for some folks, they come in and they're not quite ready for everything that REGYMEN Fitness can do. And on that platform, we talk about the modifications. Hey, here's the 4 things that you can do if you have a hard time with this. If you have a shoulder injury or a knee injury, here's where you can start. And so one of those is in the Facebook group that everyone starts at. And then if you pay a little extra and you do a nutritional consult, it's a 6-week program, then they put you into a private text or WhatsApp group. And that's where the majority of that bulk of that information is shared.
Okay.
I've asked to be a fly on the wall. Of course, I've done all the challenges myself, but I've asked to be a fly on the wall, and I am just shocked with how much love, compassion, empathy, accountability takes place in those chats. And again, that's just the side to how much knowledge is being pushed out. Because again, some of these folks like myself, I've been doing challenges now for 6 months. I have a pretty good idea. I have a pretty good awareness of what I should be eating and when I don't. And I know that I feel worse when I don't. They do as well. So, but there's folks that are like, hey, I've signed on for 10 months and their changes are so significant. And it's not just about body composition. It's about, I'm a better mother. I'm a better father.
Sure.
I'm a better person. I wake up with more energy. I can do things now that I haven't been able to do for the last 10 years. I've knocked these 3 medications off. Again, not us driving that. That's them just sharing
Just
it.
results, yeah.
Yeah. And there's folks that in that group that are 68. We have a couple folks that are 60 years old. We have someone, I'll keep it vague, but we had somebody who came in and had cirrhosis of the liver and, like lifetime of abuse. And they have, and they're older. They're older. 12.2% body fat lost. Confidence level is shifted. I mean, it's so overwhelming for me to see those transformations. Yeah. And I see them in the workouts. They work out across from me, and our workouts are rough. They're
so hard.
They're not easy. They're not easy.
They're low impact. They're not going to hurt you, but yeah, it's challenging.
Yeah, you can modify them, whatever the workout you want to, however you want to be. But Jason and I are only wired one way, and that's go as hard as 100
miles an hour.
But I'll work across from these folks that are in their 60s, and I know their backstory, and I get to watch them and be a part of that, and it's so empowering. And it makes me go, okay, I can go harder. If they can go harder, I can go harder, because I know they work 14 hours a day. I know that they're on their feet. I know that they, we're out working 17,000 steps and then coming into the workout.
Yeah.
I don't do that. So I should be able to give everything and more, and I'm 20 years younger than they are. It's just incredible. So hopefully that explains a piece of that, but it's so much deeper of a connection that our coaches and our staff have with our members. There's such a deeper understanding of where they're at, how to help them. And then again, there's just that empathy as well. Like for some people, it's just therapy to come in and work out.
Yeah.
They're dealing with some things outside of the studio that prevent them from living their best life. And, it's an honor to be a part of that 1 hour of their day that makes it, more enjoyable.
Yeah. Coming back to your core values, I think about the community, your members, and, businesses don't usually share their core values with their clients. Right. And I don't think you probably have. You probably haven't pushed those out and said, hey, this is transform lives, take ownership, embrace innovation, strive for growth. Oh no. What's the 5th one?
Do good things.
Do good things. Yes. Like it sounds like even though they're completely unaware of what these 5 core values are, they are living into and leaning into what your team has created as just it's just the bedding underneath everything. It's the groundwork. It's the framework. I'd be curious if you actually figured out a way to share those core values and brought the community in on all those, because seems like they're already doing it.
They are. And I think if we did roll them out, they would go, yeah, of course. Of course, these are the core values, because this is what we see every day. I do love, Jason, we talked about this last year. In all of my one-on-ones, we always start out with, what are our core values? And that's how we start every conversation.
Sure.
And it's so important as a reminder. I was on a plane ride back to Nevada to meet with some investors last month. And I was sitting on the plane, and this guy was overhearing me talk about golf. Big golfer. He's from San Diego. He's the vice president of Discount Tires. And he's talking to me and he said, so what do you do? You know, tell me what you do, because I love your energy. And I said, well, I'm a part of a team that owns some gyms, some fitness gyms in Austin. Really? Why is it so special? You know, you used to be a coach. You know, why is it this one? And I explained it to him. Tell me what your core values are. Do you have core values? I said, absolutely. Tell me what they are. So I told him, can I tell you what mine are? Sure. And I told him, I said, hey, before you tell me your core values, let me just say that I'm not a discount tire guy. I go to Costco for everything, but I go to Discount Tire because you guys do such a good job, and I've never been done wrong by Discount Tire ever in my entire life. And he said, it's because of our core values. Here's our core values. And he listed off the 5 core values. And he said that the gentleman who came up with those has passed. And he said, but he was such an amazing man. And you could just see it on his face, how much he believed in those values. It was incredible. I was just overwhelmed watching him glow from his time with that gentleman. And so, of course, I pitched him and said, hey, well, if you want to be an investor for REGYMEN Fitness,
course you did, yeah.
We're moving into the West Coast and I need some help there. But we exchanged information, and we're going to connect and play some golf. But point being is that, you know, it's just interesting how impactful, you know, your core values are and how far they go.
Yeah, and you're doing right to bring it up in every single meeting. Whether if you're giving somebody negative feedback or you know, constructive feedback, or if you're giving them praise, tying it back to those core values. And I mean, we all know that people don't hear something for the first time until they've heard it 7 times.
Right.
And so you just have to constantly reiterate. I felt like a broken record.
Yeah.
In my last job, right? You know, just like every meeting had to start like that. And to me, sometimes I'd roll my own eyes, but then I realized, but some of these people have never even heard them.
Yeah.
They've been on like 6 meetings.
Yeah.
And I have a slideshows and everything about these core values, and they still probably haven't heard them.
It's true. And I do the same, because I meet with the same people, right? And they're like, really, Jedd, do you want me to? Yes, I do. I need you. And I always say, what are our core values? And then which one are you having the most trouble with? And which one do you feel like you're dominating right now?
And you tie it back to behaviors, and that's another key. And I've seen your graphic that, you know, gives a long description, and the description's not like some dictionary definition. It's behaviors. It's here's what's expected because of this core value.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. So then they'll tell me, you know, they can kind of self-diagnose and say,
yeah,
I do good things, but I know I could do more. Okay, so tell me how you're going to do more. Well, here are the 3 things that I think I can do better in the next month before we meet. Fantastic. So again, it's so powerful and so much further than just our little conversation. It really drives behavior beyond that conversation.
Yeah. This is good stuff, man. You're going to keep growing. You're going to keep expanding.
Yes.
You know, we've already talked about it. Everyone's heard the name REGYMEN Fitness now, but we always give a section where you can give a plug. So what do you want to plug? Maybe specifically that if somebody is in Austin, or if they're in a city where REGYMEN exists, what should they be looking into?
Yeah. So I think what sets us apart from the jump is the fact that we have 3 different platforms under the same roof. I was looking for that. And what I mean by that is there's HIIT training, and there's lots of HIIT training out there, which is one of our platforms, which we call Burn. Mm-hmm. And that's high intensity interval training. And everyone needs it. It's super important, but it's not the end all be all. It's not everything. We have a separate section, which we call Build. And that's specifically for folks that are trying to build lean muscle mass. And the combination between HIIT and then slowing things down into a build, incredibly important. And more important than both just having 2 different platforms is there's CrossFit that does that as well, you know, and everyone knows the name CrossFit. The problem in my mind with CrossFit is there was a lot of injuries. I've done CrossFit. I loved it. It was great, but I hurt myself all the time.
Dangerous.
Statistically, CrossFitters injure their shoulders specifically at the same rate as football players, hockey players,
rugby,
and it's something else like that in the NASM, which is it's a personal training program.
Yes,
they have those stats in there, and that kind of blew my mind. It's not surprising at all.
No, and not everybody's like, you talk about agility, mobility, flexibility. There are certain people, and I would say it's a top 5. I would say 5% of the population can go in, comfortably do CrossFit and feel good going in, coming out. The other 95%, like myself, I have some limitations, mostly with my flexibility. And so I kept trying. I refused to say I'm going to give in to this thing. All of my athletes did Olympic lifting when I was coaching baseball. There's something about that explosiveness that draws people to it. However, you have to have a very strong posterior chain to be able to execute those lifts. You also have to have incredible shoulder mobility. And I didn't have that, and I had to work really hard for years to get to the point where I could just do it without hurting myself. And so with CrossFit, I feel like there's an element to it it's very appealing, but you also have to be ready for that kind of
And we're not here to knock CrossFit,
No,
obviously.
not at all.
But what you're talking about is something that's more accessible,
Yes.
10, 15% of the population, maybe even less.
Yeah.
Really, but you're going after that 80%, 90%
Absolutely.
of the entire population that can come in with no fitness background whatsoever, 68 years old,
Yep.
overweight, and they feel at home. With no
Absolutely.
judgment, with multiple platforms to get in shape,
Yes.
to feel good about themselves. So build, burn.
And the last platform is box. And we also have some hybrids that I'll get into, but those are the big three. The build is a much, it's like you have some of the CrossFit elements that are appealing, but it's done in a low impact form. So it's kettlebells, it's battle ropes, it's things that aren't going to destroy your body that you can do often and build strength, but you're not putting yourself in those vulnerable positions that you might find yourself in CrossFit. That's what I love about it.
Yeah.
Because I like CrossFit, I just don't want to get hurt. So the build platform allows me to train, lift heavy, get stronger, build lean muscle without that wear on my body. You mentioned CG, right? Camp Gladiator. Love Camp Gladiator. It's a great idea. Great people, great instructors, but it's high impact, right? You're doing it in parking lots. You're doing it. I'm too old. Like my body hurts. I can't do that anymore.
Also 100 degrees still at 8 p.m. So
That too.
I'm not going to do that.
Right. Yeah. But it's just hard. It was just really hard on my body. I loved it. I love the concept, but I'm not that guy anymore. Like I just don't rebound that way. So with our system, the burn and the build, I can do those and crush them and hit them as hard as I can for an hour and come back the next day looking for more.
Wow.
That's really rare.
Yeah.
And the third one is box, which is arguably my favorite because it's so different than the other two.
And boxing's pretty hot right now. I mean, there are boxing gyms. That's all they do. Yeah.
And so with the box, we do about just between 20, 25 minutes of actual boxing. I have gotten so much better at boxing, and I've done quite a few. Like I said, it's one of my, I would say it's in my top. Like if I have a choice, I'd love to go and do box just because it's so much different. But we do 6 different punches. We do combinations. We talk about footwork. We talk about slipping. So for me, I can go in there in 20, 25 minutes and get a legitimate workout while working on technique.
Wow.
And improving my power and my speed and my footwork. And then, we add the second half of that, which will either be a build or a burn, depending on what kind of workout. And then we have some combinations. We actually have what we call a build combo. And the build combo is a little bit more cardio. It's still based on building strength, but there's more cardio involved for those people that love that high intensity interval training.
Sure. Not me.
Right. And then we also have what we call a rumble. A rumble is all three. So you have burn, box, and build in one workout. I love the 90-minute, which is weird. I love the like 25 minutes of each one to finish my week. And the reason why I think I love it so much is in the 90-minute, once I do it, the rest of the week when I do a 45 or 50-minute workout, I'm like, oh, is that it? And I'm not normally like that. Normally I'm like 45, 50 minutes and I'm toast.
Yeah, ready to shower and lay down.
Right. But when I do the 90 on a Saturday or a Sunday, the rest of the week, it just seems like it just flew by.
Cakewalk, yeah.
Cakewalk, exactly. And then, of course, we here, and there's a couple regimens around the country that offer it. I felt like it was very important for us. One of our investors, one of my good friends, is a specialist in restorative yoga. So for our members as an add-on value on Sundays, every other Sunday, she comes in and does a restorative yoga flow, which is focusing on agility, mobility, flexibility. And I'm telling you, if I do it, I feel fantastic. And if I don't, I don't feel as good.
Yeah, it almost you feel unlocked.
You do.
You
Absolutely.
Just all this constraining your muscles and everything, and then
I really do. It's very zen. She does little lavender rags at the very end. It's incredible.
That's super cool.
But just an add-on value.
Yeah.
REGYMEN Fitness, REGYMEN.
Yeah, that's correct.
Check it out.
And right now there's 2 locations. Isn't one's kind of by the triangle?
So we have 2 locations. One is next to the domain in the Arbor
it's
Walk.
closer to the domain. Okay.
Yeah, it's right across. It's next to Masala Walk in the Arbor
Okay.
Walk. And then we have a second location in Round Rock, right next to the Target on 35 and 45.
Oh yeah. Oh wow.
With a tornado touchdown, the only tornado that I've ever heard of being in Austin.
Opposite of La
I didn't know
Frontera
that.
there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I'm in South Austin. So
We are growing into South
how
Austin.
soon is that coming?
Well, we have plans. So everything we do is within a 5-mile radius. And I think that's important when you're starting something new to create that awareness in the community. So for us, we really would like to expand one more north and then start our south and really go SoCo, South Congress if we can.
Love it. Yeah.
And then work our way, I'd like to work our way into San Marcos, even all the way down to New Braunfels, San Antonio. It seems to me like there is a lot of folks that need exactly what we deliver, particularly around the awareness of nutrition. It seems like in the center of Austin, there's an awareness. The further you get out, it seems like there's not the tools and the people to help folks make those big body changes.
There's also not a gym quite like yours, right?
No.
You can go to a gym that has the build type of thing, but you got to know what you're doing. And
Correct.
People don't know what they're doing.
No.
So it's intimidating. You've got, the fruit hypothesis that you mentioned earlier.
Correct.
Orange theory, get it? Fruit. Anyway, and it's very cardio.
Yes.
And it's pretty one-dimensional.
Very
Super
much so.
cool. Great model.
Yeah.
But one-dimensional. And then you can go boxing, but that's all you're doing. And you've just combined it all in one. Now you're adding the nutrition. You're adding the one-on-one training.
Yes.
The very specific programs personalized for the people that are coming in and doing challenges. It's really something special.
Yeah. And I think, you touched on it, like the personal training. How expensive is it to get a personal trainer? I think that's the thing.
Good one, $80 an hour.
Yeah. That's the
minimum.
Right. And so before REGYMEN open, even when I travel, I don't like to work out because I don't know what this, I don't have the system.
Yeah.
I paid a lot of money when I was coaching Division I baseball to have a friend do it for me. Mm-hmm. And he did a great job, but I don't have those skills. I don't know volume, like how to balance the volume of cardio versus lifting.
Yeah.
This is science. Sure. It's not something that, and even some of the personal trainers that I work with here in Austin, they didn't know. And I would tell them, hey, this has to be very specific. Yeah. Because if I'm too heavy on cardio or I'm too heavy on just the lifting portion of it, I'm going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Most importantly. And then I love boxing. My kids both do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai. I love striking. I always have. I love fighting. And the boxing gave me an outlet for that. That's safe. I'm not getting punched back in the face at 48.
That's key.
I appreciate that.
That's key.
I don't mind getting hit in the face every once in a while, but not every day.
I'll keep that in mind.
That's right. So I actually, I like to get in there and mix it up and feel like, okay, I still have some skills if I, absolutely needed them. But yeah, no, I love that. And I love that there are personal trainers. I love that our people are accessible. And Jason knows this. He's friends with some of them outside of the studio. But you go and you talk to them afterwards and you say, hey, I'm struggling. My knee hurts. And they'll give you all the modifications in the world. They're not in a rush. They're not pushing you out to bring the next group in.
Yeah.
If you want personal training, we actually have programs that we've set up. We have about 10 of our members that are members first. And they do their workouts, but they also do personal training with the coach because they want that deeper connection, because they want to know something. So they're training for something very specific.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the nutritional piece, to me, that awareness is the truly drives the value, because it definitely changes the way that I see food. Yeah. In the last year, everything I do every day, I know for me, I need to consume 200 to 240 grams of protein. That's a lot. And so if I don't start my day doing that, I won't get there.
Yeah.
And I used to do the challenges. I used to do challenges, the 30 days of death that I used to do pretty often. And I'd have all of this build, like as I was taking in so much protein. I didn't know that, but I was taking in so much protein. I'd leave the challenge and I was jacked. I felt like I was carrying a lot of muscle. And then within 2 weeks, it was gone. My legs got bird-like again. And I was like, man, I wasted, all the weeks of training. And then once I figured out my macros and figured out how important protein was, now I can go a week without lifting. And as long as I maintain 200 to 240 grams of protein and I watch my fat intake and I watch my carb intake, I maintain that same amount of muscle. So again, like just talking about value and delivering above and beyond, that awareness for me, it's changed my life.
Yeah.
I go on vacation, I stop and I get a case of protein from Costco. I have to.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And it makes me feel better. And so we talk about golf. I went on a trip back home, met with some investors. I golf 5 of the 7 days. And that's not easy to do if you don't golf all the time.
Yeah.
In Reno, Tahoe. Yeah. But, I was making sure that my protein intake was up and I had plenty of energy and I felt great the entire time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting that right before you got here, Jason and I were talking about like, hey, do we want to go get in a workout later and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, I was an athlete. Everyone in my family played every sport. I mean, always. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about it of like, I have a Gold's membership, but most of the time I would rather work out in my garage because there's this anxiety of, am I going to have to share things? And then we talk about it all the time of like, my brain is so consumed with other things that it literally hurts my brain to have to think about, well, what am I going to work out today?
Agreed.
And
right.
When I first got divorced, I knew I needed to do something. I'm like 200 now. I'd gotten up to 235.
Wow.
And I hated myself. I was just miserable. And I was trying everything. Yeah. And I tried CrossFit. And immediate was like, whoa, I'm going to hurt myself.
That's murderous.
Yeah, like I'm going to kill myself. Yeah. And what's interesting is Joey from Camp Gladiator came to my
Joey Kelly
work. I love Joey. What a human. And
I don't know Joey.
And he actually came the first day and they talked about Camp Gladiator and they talked about dieting. And I started out and I got lucky. I didn't know that I was going to the Camp Gladiator where Allie Davidson, the founder, was the instructor.
Okay.
And I mean, it gets me emotional now because I cried that I was like, okay, this is what it can be like.
Yep.
But the thing that I hated, and I went to hundreds of Camp Gladiator. I actually worked there part-time, helping them sell for a while. Like, good. Loved it. But I hated it's wintertime and we're still going to work out.
Right.
But I'm like, okay, cool. We are working out and we're at a elementary school on Kelly Lane and we're under this awning, but I'm still getting rained on. It's freezing cold. Mm-hmm. Well, now it's 100 degrees. I'm in a parking lot at a church and, okay. So I'm hearing you talk about all of these things and not even like here. I mean, as a human, as a guy that's constantly wants to be in good shape, and I turned 40 in 2 weeks. And like last night looking in the mirror going, okay, like I love working out. I love what it feels like mentally, emotionally, physically. But now I'm like, okay, so I have to go to Regimen. And now I'm like,
you have to. We'll go check it out together. I'll get you in.
Yeah, and then I'm like, well, maybe we should do like a secret shopper thing where I'll go. Sure. I want to go and them not know who I am. And
I had my wife do that.
Right. I want to like go in and pretend. I don't want it to go in and be like, oh, it's Jason. Yeah, okay, cool. And like, no, I want to
absolutely.
I want to come in and get that experience.
I would love that.
But
maybe send him do one of the challenge presentations to see. Yeah,
absolutely.
That'd be fun. By the way, this guy can sell anything.
I love that. Well, and the great thing is that we've had, not just Beth come in, Jason's Beth, but we've had other folks come in that were, trying to make a decision, $1 million decision. Do I want to be involved with Regimen? And we pass in flying colors. And I think the reason is because people that work with us, our teammates, they see the value and they truly believe in it. And being somebody who can sell, if you believe in it, and I can tell you do, because when you talked about CG, it made you emotional, which I love. I love that. I think emotion's great. And I have empathetic coaches that are very emotional, and I love it. And I tell them, I say, that's your superpower.
Yeah.
That's not a negative thing. That's a great thing.
The ability to connect on that deeper level and feel things. Yeah.
And they do. And that's when you said, like, tell me why. Tell me, I can't put it in words. Like, I was in a nutritional consultation with one of our leaders, and there was 30 people in there, and very vulnerable and emotional. And everybody in the room was like, I love that dude. Yeah. I will follow you. You tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Yeah.
And most of them lost like 12%, like 12 pounds of body fat.
That's a fantastic.
I know. And but it was because of the connection. It was because they believed him and they trusted him. That's that speed of trust. That's so important. So I appreciate that. And of course, I mean, I'd love for you to go in as a secret shopper, but I don't think either way. I think, based on the times that I've had folks go in under the radar, it won't matter. It won't matter. And
I love it.
Well, still, it's good to have fresh eyes, right? You can,
absolutely.
I just had this random thought of like, a lot of this is not going to make the podcast.
Oh, sure.
But I was just like, having like this like quality of like the vocal quality, like we just have conversations like this. We should just fucking mic up, put in these in-ear monitors.
Well, what I'd appreciate is if we did create something that I can share on social media.
Oh yeah.
We can.
Oh sure.
Once the final product, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we could even edit it down to like a 5-minute.
Yeah. Part of this is we're going to be doing little clips for TikTok and all that kind of thing.
Okay.
Probably a couple weeks out before we're editing any of these, because we're recording a bunch.
Right. Yeah.
In a couple of weeks. So, but yeah.
No, I'd love to. I think it's always good. And again, when you can capture the spirit of what we're doing.
Yeah. And in this conversational way, it's super cool.
Yeah. Agreed.
So a lot of times on our podcast, I should put this. Yeah, we also have all of our guests take the predictive index assessment. You're a little bit unique. You're actually a client. You use the software, so you know the stuff in and out. And you also already mentioned it, so we don't have a ton to talk about, but it's fun to just bring up your results. And
are you a captain?
No, this dude is a maverick. Just like us. Foot on the gas. Brake pedals non-existent. Break all the rules because they're suggestions at best.
Yes.
But when we bring that up on the podcast as it relates to leadership, because there is no bad profile for leadership.
Correct.
There's strengths to be found in anybody's hardwiring, but there's also challenge areas. Yeah. And so you being that like risk tolerant, 100 mile foot's on the gas, brake pedals nowhere to be found. Like where have you found to be some challenges that you've needed people on your team to help tap those brakes and balance you out?
I think when I coached for all those years, that was it forced me to work fast, but also take in all of the resources and make the best decision quickly. And so I think those 20 years helped me hone being a maverick. So I would say I am a maverick. I have all of those traits, but all of those years of we'd lose if I made the wrong choice.
Right.
Sure.
And I called pitches. So literally I'm thinking 3 pitches ahead. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about who's on deck. What are the strengths of my pitcher versus a left-hander if they bring him in, or a right-hander. And I have all those stats in front of me. So I got very good at assessing the situation and making what I believed with the information at hand the best choice. And I think I did it well. I would have gotten fired much sooner had I not.
Sure.
But I was able to make a career out of it because I was able to do that. There are some things that are very obvious for me, and this, is that one of mine is my details are horrible. Like I am not good at details.
What?
Right.
We're maverick. We're also mavericks. We can't even understand.
We literally
what you're
made
saying.
that joke earlier of like, we're totally detail people.
Yeah,
right.
Not at all.
Not at all.
And so, right now, Jason and I are working on something for an evaluation tool for the team. And I was like, did I miss those details? Like, because I was trying to share it with them yesterday in this conversation, and I couldn't get them to take the test. And I was like, it's probably me. I immediately defaulted to, I missed a detail there.
Yeah,
I either didn't get access or something happened and it's on my end. But no, there's no question. What I've realized, particularly with Regimen, there are a lot of details and they're all important. There's no not important detail. And so for me, it's very important that I have a right-hand person at Regimen. Right now, it's Gabriel Lucio, who's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But Gabriel immediately, like I can give him like the things that I have difficulties with, he excels at. And the things that he might have a little bit of difficulty with, I excel at. And so again, using the predictive index tool, I knew my gaps and I knew exactly what I needed.
And where Gabriel could fill in.
There's no question. And so the predictive index with him was so valuable. Like I couldn't deny it. And it was just amazing because he came in to see us. And so we pulled up his profile. It just matched incredibly well. So, he's just one example, but he does a great job of filling in those gaps that and a lot of it has to do with detail because there's a lot of legal.
Sure. Yeah. And you've got Davis on your team as well. Yeah. I mean, that's really the whole point of a tool like that is for the leader to have that self-awareness, come up with coping mechanisms, which sometimes is just delegating to somebody else who can balance them out.
Yeah.
That's some of the most powerful pieces of that.
I want to move fast.
Yeah.
So the faster I can move, if it's a delegation, I'm going to delegate it. If I can handle it, I'll handle it.
And if somebody's slowing you down, you're going, why are you doing this to me?
Yes, absolutely.
Why are you a stick in the mud?
Personal. It's personal.
Uh-huh. Well, we're going to move on to the last piece here, and it's just a little quick fire. It's just a fun way, high energy to end things off. So I'm just going to say 2 things, and you got to choose one.
All right.
No thinking. Summer or winter?
Summer.
Barbecue or Tex-Mex?
Barbecue.
Dogs or cats?
Ooh, cats.
Me too. Coffee or energy drink?
Coffee.
Wow.
Yeah. Playing or coaching?
Oh, playing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
Okay,
All right. Well, that was a surprise twist at the end there from an ex-baseball coach. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jedd, for your time.
Absolutely.
Jedd Soto, CEO of REGYMEN Fitness. This has been a great conversation. Learned a lot from you. Love talking core values. Love talking culture and hearing your backstory with coaching and all the life change there. Man, thank you so much for being vulnerable with us, for sharing your story. And
thank you guys. It's my pleasure. I enjoy talking about leadership and all of the good things that predictive can bring. It's an honor to be here with you guys. So
awesome.
thank you.
Thank you, Jedd.
Well, work cultured podcast signing off. Bye, everyone.
Thanks.